I remember the exact sound my suitcase made when it hit the pavement. A hollow final thud, like something inside me had broken along with it. It had only been 2 hours since we buried my son, and already I was standing outside the home I helped build, watching my life being thrown out piece by piece by the woman he loved. I didn't cry at the funeral, not when they lowered the casket, not when people placed their hands on my shoulder and whispered things, like he's in a better place, or stay strong. I just stood there numb, staring at the polished wood as if I could somehow will it open and tell him to get up, to come home, to fix this. My son Aram wasn't just my child. He was everything that remained of a life that had already taken too much from me. After my husband passed years ago, it was just the two of us. We learned how to survive together. Late-night dinners, quiet jokes, small celebrations that meant more than they should have. And then, 3 years ago, he brought her home. Sana. I remember how nervous he was that day. He kept adjusting his sleeves, checking his reflection in the window like a teenager. When the doorbell rang, he looked at me and said, "Please, just be yourself." She walked in with a soft smile and warm eyes, carrying a small box of sweets. Thoughtful, polite, respectful. Everything a mother hopes for. Over time, she became part of our home, so naturally that it almost felt like she had always been there. She would help in the kitchen without being asked, sit with me during tea, ask about my health, my past, things most people don't bother with anymore. And more importantly, she loved my son. Or at least, that's what I believed. Their laughter used to echo through the house. Sometimes I would sit in my room and just listen to it, smiling quietly, thanking God that Arham had found someone who brought him peace. When they got married, we all agreed they would stay in the house. It made sense. It was spacious, and honestly, I didn't want to be alone again. At first, nothing changed. But slowly, very slowly, something did. It wasn't obvious. Not enough to point at and say, "This is wrong." Just small things. Santa stopped joining me for tea as often. She began spending more time on her phone, stepping out onto the balcony to take calls in hushed tones. When I'd ask who it was, she'd smile casually and say, "Just a friend." Aham didn't seem to notice. Or maybe he did and chose not to say anything. He trusted people easily, just like his father did. There were nights he came home tired from work, and she barely looked up from her screen. I noticed it. Of course I noticed. But I told myself not to interfere. Every marriage has phases. Every couple has distance sometimes. And then, Arham got sick. It started with something small, fatigue, a cough that didn't go away. We thought it was nothing serious at first. He insisted it was just work stress. But weeks turned into tests, and tests turned into hospital visits. I still remember the day the doctor called us in. The room felt too quiet, too sterile, too final. After that, everything blurred. Hospitals became our second home. Machines, reports, medications, hope, fear, denial, all tangled together. Through it all, I stayed by his side, and so did Sana. At least physically, she was there, sitting beside him, holding his hand when nurses came in, speaking gently when he was awake. But something in her eyes, it wasn't the same anymore. It's hard to explain. She looked distant, like someone playing a role she no longer believed in. Sometimes I would catch her staring at her phone while Arham slept, her expression completely blank. No tears, no exhaustion, just emptiness. Once late at night, I saw her step out of the hospital room and answer a call. Her voice changed instantly. Soft, almost affectionate. I couldn't hear the words, but I remember the way she smiled. That smile didn't belong in a hospital. I told myself I was imagining things. That grief was making me suspicious, that I was being unfair, because the truth was, I needed her to be genuine. I needed to believe my son wasn't alone in this. The weeks passed, and Aram grew weaker. The house, once filled with laughter, became quiet, heavy. And then came the day I had been dreading from the moment the doctor avoided eye contact, the day we buried him. Everything after that felt unreal. People came and went. Prayers were recited. Hands were shaken. And through it all, Sana stood beside me, composed, silent, almost too calm. I thought maybe she was in shock. Maybe grief affects everyone differently. Maybe she just needed time. I didn't expect what happened next. When we returned home after the funeral, I felt completely drained. My legs were weak, my chest tight. All I wanted was to go into my room, sit on my bed, and breathe. But as soon as I stepped inside, something felt off. The air was different, colder. The living room looked disturbed. Cushions out of place, a drawer slightly open. I frowned, confused. "Sana?" I called out softly. No answer. I walked further in, my heart starting to beat faster. And then I saw it, my suitcase, sitting near the door. At first, my mind refused to understand what I was looking at. Then I noticed another bag, and another, all mine, carefully packed, placed by the entrance like they were waiting to be taken away. A strange ringing filled my ears. I turned slowly, my voice barely above a whisper. "Sana, what is this?" She appeared from the hallway, calm, composed, dressed differently than she had been at the funeral, like she had already stepped into another day, another life. For a moment, we just looked at each other, and in that silence, something inside me began to crack. She didn't look sad. She didn't look broken. She looked decided. "I think it's better if you stay somewhere else for a while," she said, her tone even, almost rehearsed. The words didn't make sense. "Somewhere else?" I repeated, my voice trembling. "This is my home." She exhaled slowly, like she had expected resistance. "It was Aram's house," she corrected gently. "And now, things are different." Different. That word echoed in my mind like a warning. I took a step forward, my hands shaking. "Sana, we just buried him," I said, my voice breaking despite my effort to stay calm. "What are you saying?" She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she glanced toward the door. And that's when I heard it. A car pulling up outside. My breath caught. Sana's expression shifted. Just slightly. Not guilt. Not hesitation. Something else. Anticipation. She looked back at me. And for the first time since I had known her, I realized something terrifying. I didn't know this woman at all. The doorbell rang. And 2 seconds later, she walked past me to open it. The door opened slowly. And in that moment, I realized something strange about grief. You think the worst thing that can happen has already happened. You think nothing can shock you after standing beside your child's grave. But you're wrong. Because some pain doesn't come like a storm. It arrives quietly and sits down in your living room like it belongs there. When Sana opened the door, a man stepped inside. He looked comfortable. Too comfortable, not like a guest. Not like someone visiting a grieving home. Like someone who had already been here before. My chest tightened. He paused when he saw me just for a second, then glanced at Sana as if silently asking a question. Sana gave a small nod. "This is him," she said. Her voice was calm, normal, as if she were introducing someone at a dinner gathering. My hands trembled. "I don't understand," I whispered. The man shifted slightly, offering a polite smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Hello?" I couldn't respond. My mind was trying to catch up with something my heart already knew. Sana closed the door behind him and walked back into the room like this was all perfectly reasonable. "I told you it would be better if you stayed somewhere else," she said again, almost gently. My gaze moved between them. "How long?" I asked. The question surprised even me. I didn't ask who he was. I didn't ask why he was here, because somewhere deep inside, the answer had already begun forming. Sana didn't speak immediately. That silence told me everything. My throat felt dry. "How long has this been going on?" I repeated, this time stronger. The man looked uncomfortable now, glancing toward the floor. But Sana didn't look away. "Before things got serious with Aram's illness," she said. The room seemed to tilt slightly. I had to steady myself against the wall. Images began flashing through my mind. The balcony phone calls, the distant look in her eyes at the hospital, the soft voice late at night. It wasn't my imagination. It never was. "And you stayed," I said slowly, my voice shaking, "while he was fighting for his life." Sana's expression hardened just a little. "You think it was easy for me," she replied. Everything changed. The house became a hospital. Our life stopped. Our life. Not his life. Not his pain. Her life. I stared at her, trying to reconcile the woman I had trusted with the one standing in front of me. "You sat beside him," I said quietly. "You held his hand." "I did what I had to do," she answered. Those words, they were colder than anger. For a long moment, none of us spoke. The house felt unfamiliar now, like I had walked into someone else's story. The man finally cleared his throat. "Sana," he said softly, "maybe we should give her some time." That sentence confirmed something else. They had already talked about this, planned it, thought it through. I looked at the bags near the door again. Neatly packed, not rushed, prepared. "You packed my things before the funeral," I said. It wasn't a question. Santa didn't deny it. "I didn't want to create a scene today," she replied. A scene. My son's funeral had barely ended, and she was worried about a scene. Something inside me went quiet then. Not anger, not shouting, just clarity. I walked slowly toward the suitcase that had fallen earlier outside. It was still slightly open, one of my old photo frames visible inside. A picture of Arham when he was 10, holding a kite that refused to fly. He had been laughing so hard that day. I closed the suitcase gently. Behind me, I could feel both of them watching. "You know," I said after a moment, my voice calmer than I expected, "Aram trusted you more than anyone." Sana didn't respond. "He used to tell me," I continued, "that no matter what happened in life, you would never leave him." Her eyes flickered slightly at that. Just slightly. The man shifted again, clearly uncomfortable now. I picked up the suitcase. It felt heavier than it should have, but not because of the clothes inside. I turned toward the door. For a second, I paused, not because I wanted to stay, but because something had finally clicked in my mind. A memory. A conversation from weeks earlier. Aram lying in the hospital bed, looking weaker than I had ever seen him. He had asked me something strange that day. "Mom, if anything ever feels wrong after I'm gone," he had said quietly, "promise me you won't ignore it." At the time, I thought it was just fear talking, but now those words felt different. Behind me, Sana spoke again. "You'll be okay staying somewhere else for now, right?" she said. I turned slowly and looked at her. Really looked this time, and suddenly I realized something important. She believed this was the end of the story, that once I walked out, everything would belong to her. The house, the memories, the future. But what she didn't know, what neither of them knew, was that my son had asked me to keep something safe, something he had given me quietly, just days before his condition worsened. At the time, I didn't fully understand why it mattered so much to him. Now I was starting to walk to the door and opened it. The evening air was cool and still. I stepped outside with my suitcase. Behind me, I heard the door close, softly, almost casually, as if they were closing a chapter that no longer concerned them. But as I stood there on the pavement, I slipped my hand into my coat pocket and felt the small envelope Aram had insisted I keep, unopened, untouched, until now. And for the first time since the funeral, I realized something that made my heart beat a little differently. Maybe my son had known more than any of us realized.